This episode really shows how it's always a good idea to talk about periods, hormones, and cramps, even with people you just met. Yeah, it starts out timid and a little unsure of where it's gonna go, but if you stick with the conversation past the slightly awkward part, you suddenly realize there is so much to talk about. There is a whole world of experience and knowledge and perspective and things I never considered just sitting there inside this person, and they never get the opportunity to share. At the start of this recording, I had only exchanged a few emails with Courtney Kocak. By the end, I had learned new things, been amazed and impressed, and was so excited to talk to her again. So what's it like to sell t-shirts on a Girls Gone Wild tour and have a profound realization about your life? What's up with longevity drugs that delay menopause? And why aren't doctors more concerned when you have a cyst pop and it hurts so much you have to lie on the floor of a Taco Bell bathroom?
What's happening to your body, we don't know, because we've never really studied the female body. Say it's all in my head, but the research is quite spotty. No, we've never really studied the female body. I go to the doctor to get dismissed. Try losing weight, you're just anxious. That's fine, that's cool, I'm not pissed. Just wait 10 years for a diagnosis. Psychosomatic, you're so dramatic. Hysterical, emotional, hormonal, erratic. Heart disease, chronic fatigue, depression and anxiety. Do you have pain? No, you don't, because we never really studied the female body.
Welcome back to CRAMPED, the podcast where I try to find answers to my and other people's questions about their period pain. I'm your host, Kate Helen Downey. I hope that listening to this podcast feels like meeting up with me at a local bar, and sometimes I bring friends that have fascinating stories and experiences to tell us about. So then think of the CRAMPED Patreon as a way to buy me a very cheap drink once a month while we're sitting at that bar. When you support us at $5 a month, which is a cheaper drink than I have seen since dive bars in Brooklyn in 2013, you get full bonus episodes, ad-free episodes, and you get to hop on Zoom once a month with me and all the other crampers to talk about what we're dealing with in real time. At $10 a month, which is a present-day very good happy hour deal for a cocktail, you get to vote on which topics I cover in that month's episodes. At $25 a month, the cost of one cocktail here in LA plus tip and tax, for $25 a month, you get to assign me a whole-ass research question every month that I will go find you answers for. So go buy me a drink at a bar called patreon.com/cramped. It's not a very good name for a bar, but it is open 24/7. And just a quick reminder, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I am just a research nerd with a uterus and a microphone sharing what I found. And today what I found is a new friend named Courtney Kocak. I'm just going to let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Courtney Kocak. I am a writer, fellow podcaster, and comedian, and I just wrote my debut memoir, which came out on April 1st, and it is called Girl Gone Wild, and it's about trying to make it in Hollywood and an unwitting feminist coming of age. And yeah, I'm really excited to share it and nervous and all the stuff that comes with releasing a book.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Tell me about your period pain, Courtney.
So I got my period when I was 11, and I was mortified of that. I was like a few months from my 12th birthday, and I was mortified to be so mature. But I instantly had lots of cramping that I dealt with. Do you remember being that age and just trying to manage? I see 11, 12-year-old girls now, and I'm like, how are you dealing with pads and tampons and what? It seems insane that we have to do that.
They're children. They're such babies. I live near a college, and even seeing like college freshmen, I'm like, you are children. Oh no.
So yeah, I have so much empathy for myself at that stage of just like having to navigate that. But I would sometimes have to stay home for a day, maybe two, if it was really brutal on bad months from school.
Were you throwing up? Were you just like in so much pain you couldn't get out of bed?
I don't think I was throwing up, but like I have vivid memories of being on the floor in my classroom. Yeah. So it was just hard to pay attention. It was hard to be up and moving around and be thinking about anything other than that throbbing pain. I also, because the pain was so bad, I had this like image that went along with it of what must be going on.
Ooh, interesting. Tell me what that image was.
It was just like a clotted like reproductive system, and I would have this image of that super thick clotted blood like coming out of me. I know that's disgusting, but
no, but it's so visceral because you feel that pain and you're like, something's wrong. Something's gone wrong inside of me. I remember the first time I got really bad cramps that were making me throw up. I had read like way too many novels about girls in like the 1940s getting appendicitis and not knowing what's going on, and I was like, that's me, that's what's happening to me, this is how they felt. And then the school nurse was just like, no, it's your period. And I was like, you're not gonna rush me to the hospital on a gurney and cut me open? That doesn't make any sense.
It does feel like they should though. Oh my God. So yeah, I would have that image. I would just be really struggling with it, I would say, all the way through my entire middle school, high school experience. So then I started dabbling in birth control.
As one does, yeah.
Yes. And it always made me sick. Like, regardless of what I tried, I did Depo, Provera my senior year. And then I did a birth control pill, and then I did the NuvaRing, and then I did, and kind of whatever I would use, it was to the point where like my red flag was that Diet Coke tasted metallic. And I was like, something is so wrong if Diet Coke is.
Wow. So it was affecting your senses. It was affecting what you were tasting. And wow. Because I know for me, it was always like, I was like a flat affect. If I was on any birth control, I tried, NuvaRing made me psychotic. Sophomore year in college, and I had a fight with my boyfriend where I was like laughing 1 minute and crying the next. And I was like, oh, that's not normal. The signal for me was just like, oh, either I'm like feeling nothing and every day is exactly the same, or the swings are so crazy, it's like untenable.
I totally resonate with that. Yeah. That same emotionally for me too.
But I wonder if I'd been like more paying attention to the physical side of things, because I was going for theater, so I was like very tapped into the emotional. Yeah. But I was way less tapped into the physical, and now I wonder if I could go back and feel those things again. I wonder if there were like things like that, like taste or hearing or other senses.
Yeah. I was a Diet Coke fiend, so it was very obvious to me. But yeah, I just hated all of that. And I feel like there's no conversation around like all the side effects that go with these different birth control options that you could choose. And this is another podcast, but I do feel like we need to get this birth control for men off the ground.
Yeah, that is an uphill fight, but it's getting fought. People, it's slowly getting there. But the problem is, if a man tasted Diet Coke and it was slightly different, the whole system would grind to a halt, because we can't expect men to deal with something tasting slightly worse just so that things are more convenient for women.
Yeah, we would rather make these women just totally sick. But I feel like after I stopped this sounds so dramatic, experimenting with birth control, which was legit kind of what I was going through in my early 20s, I feel like the end of the road was like I got melasma from birth control.
Yes, me too. Like, I don't know if you can see it in this light, but I have a big kind of blotch on my forehead of melasma. You know, I had to go look up melasma. Melasma is a pretty common skin disorder where you get spots or areas of discoloration, usually on parts of your skin that are exposed to sunlight, most often the face, usually the cheeks, upper lip, or forehead. They can be little spots like freckles or more like big patches. They can be light brown, dark brown, or even blue-gray. These spots are areas where the melanocytes, which are the cells in your skin that produce and store pigment, they've gotten a little too hyped and overactive, usually because of the hormonal stimulation from higher than usual estrogen and progesterone. Those melanocytes produce more pigment than usual, which looks like spots or splotches that have more or different coloring than the surrounding skin. Those higher than usual levels of estrogen and progesterone can be because of pregnancy, which is why melasma is often called the mask of pregnancy, whatever that means. But those higher hormone levels can also be from hormonal birth control, which works by adding enough synthetic estrogen and progesterone to your system to trick your body into thinking it's already pregnant so it doesn't ovulate. That's a very simplified explanation, but for the purposes of melasma, it works. So if melasma is because of higher levels of hormones, why doesn't it affect all of your skin the same way? Apparently, some areas of skin have melanocytes with more sensitive hormone receptors, which is why it's spotty or patchy, even though all of your skin is technically getting the same exposure to those hormones. Somewhere between 15 to 50% of pregnant women get melasma. Gotta love the range on those stats. Clearly, we don't really look into this very carefully. And between 1 to 33% of people who are not pregnant have it. Again, not a super useful stat. Men also do get melasma. About 10% of people with melasma are men. Because melasma is skin hyperpigmentation, it gets darker and more noticeable with exposure to UV or sunlight. So you may not notice it at all in the winter and then see it a lot clearer in the summer. It's also been linked to hypothyroidism, which will actually come up later in this conversation. It has also been linked to drugs that make you sensitive to sunlight, which include some NSAIDs, usually not ibuprofen, but some other non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So if you take an NSAID other than ibuprofen for your period pain, maybe check to see if photosensitivity or phototoxicity is a side effect of that NSAID, if you are noticing melasma. Based on all those connections with hormones, NSAIDs, and thyroid, I would guess that a higher than average percentage of you listening also have melasma, just like me and Courtney. But let me know if I'm right. This info on melasma is courtesy of the Cleveland Clinic's website. Go check it out for more details if you're interested. That was from the last form of hormonal birth control that I experimented with, which was the Skyla IUD. Fucked me up good. Gave me panic attacks, gave me a lot of melasma. And I was looking it up because I was like, do I have skin cancer? And it was like, no, it's melasma, the mask of pregnancy. And it was like, by the way, if you change birth controls, like you might get that. You might get it too.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It made me so self-conscious. I was just like, no more. I'm done. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to the pull-out method or condoms or whatever.
Yeah. At a certain point, you just go, hey, I'm not doing like medical experiments on myself anymore just so that I can have sex without a condom. Like, we will just use condoms and fuck off if you can't deal with that.
Yeah, totally. But I feel like it was around that stage, mid-20s, going into my late 20s, that things started to regulate a little bit. Like as far as cramping, it was more predictable. It was still present. There would be a day or two where I would take extra strength Tylenol or whatever. I luckily worked at home, so it was for most of it. So it was pretty manageable in that way. My period was like clockwork a little bit, like every 28 days for the most part. And so I knew it was coming. And it wasn't like when I was a teenager, and I could manage it a little bit better. And then smooth sailing with that. Aside from, it does suck that one day a month you are going to be totally
there does
totally fucked.
Even I got surgery about 10 months ago, and since then I have had what I think are pretty normal period experiences where like I do have cramps and they're uncomfortable, but they're not debilitating. I can take 2 ibuprofen and that's it for the whole day. I can function. I can do what I need to do. I'm not comfortable. I'm not
totally.
Like, I don't love it, but it's just miles difference from how it used to be. Now that I'm not in severe pain all the time, I almost notice all the other symptoms that were buried by all the severe pain, where I'm like, wait, I am in a bad mood. Wait, I am really tired.
Oh, you poor thing. Oh, the regular version is hard enough.
I know. This is what I wanted so badly, and it still sucks.
Yeah, I mean, had just the regular bad version until I'm 42 now. And I would say up until the last, I'm going to say 18 months, my periods were every 28 days for the most part. There would be some slight variations, but the one and a half really bad days. And then I guess I'm in perimenopause. It was so funny because my bestie from college, we were doing this reunion thing, and I feel like she cursed me a little bit, but I know it's totally It's totally like a random coincidence, but we were at this thing and she was like, hey, have you noticed that your period got kind of weird lately? And I was like, don't say that.
Don't invoke its name. Yeah.
Yeah, literally the next period I had got weird. And I was like, you bitch.
Power of suggestion. Oh, that's so funny.
And I didn't know this. And then I looked it up after the fact, but you sort of revert back to, it's sort of like a bell-shaped curve or whatever, that it's really bad and then it dips down and normalizes. And then as you're going through perimenopause, which you would think it just means it's going to get less or it's going to reduce the severity of the cramps or whatever. No, it goes back to those early hormone fluctuations that you had. And so like last month, I literally had a longer period than usual.
Yeah.
Part of it was lighter than usual, but I still had like super intense cramping for 5 days.
Oh my God.
Which I was like, why are we going back to this?
That sucks, dude. It totally changed my perception of perimenopause and menopause because I thought it was just like, okay, well, eventually it stops. So you would think that the path from it being normal to it stopping would just be a slowing down. But no, it's literally puberty in reverse. Like, it's just another period of hormonal chaos, just like puberty. But we don't talk about it that way when we talk about it at all, because the only puberty that gets any PR is the one that men go through too. This completely changed my brain chemistry forever. If you define puberty by a period of time during which your hormones change a huge amount and are very different afterwards than they were before, if that's how you define puberty, then people with ovaries go through puberty once, like at onset, at menarche, or like when your sex hormones come online. And that's the puberty that boys and men have too. Then we also go through a puberty anytime we get pregnant, give birth, and wean from breastfeeding. Like that whole cycle would be like another puberty over the course of like 2 years. Every time you have a kid, you go through that cycle, and then you go through another puberty between starting perimenopause and being in menopause. That's another puberty.
That's crazy.
It is as much change, and our bodies our hormonal balances are as different after each of those events, but there is almost nothing said about it. There is very little support for it. Yeah.
I just feel like I just learned about perimenopause like a couple years ago. And I don't think it's just because I'm aging into it, but it's because we just didn't talk about it being a thing, period. I just was like, oh yeah, I think like in your early 50s or whatever, you go through menopause. And so I'm not there yet. And so I don't need to think about anything in this leading up stage. And now we finally realize, oh, there's this thing, and actually there's a lot going on during this stage. And it can be
years long. Like it
can be a decade.
And then because hormones are a system that is built to react to the environment. And so like you could be having symptoms of perimenopause and then something changes and you're not anymore for a while. And then it comes back. Nothing is as simple or as linear as we think. We're going to take a quick break for ads, and we'll be right back.
Cause we never really studied the female body.
Can I tell you something a little crazy?
Yes, please.
Okay, so right around the time my friend said this to me about the weird periods, I got a little freaked out because I'm at this stage where I'm wondering, like, do I want to have a kid? And I'm not totally decided on it yet. And I know I should have been thinking about this 5+ years ago, but I didn't. I was working on my art. Okay, so anyway, late to the party, but I started being like, oh my God, I need to have, if I'm going to make this decision, like I need to have enough eggs and whatever. I did a bunch of research and I discovered, I think it's called the Pearl study and the Vibrant study. You might want to fact check me on this, but there are these studies out of Columbia University where they use this drug called rapamycin. And I had heard about rapamycin because I listened to all the longevity podcasts too. So it's a longevity drug. What it's supposed to do is delay menopause by like maybe 5 years, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So I immediately went to Ageless RX and I got myself a prescription. And honestly, when I take it, it's strangely, I have my old school period back.
That's wild. Do you know how it works?
I don't. There's something about mTOR receptors, and this is too high grade of medical stuff for me to actually know.
Oh my God, 2 research dings in one episode? I knew I liked talking to Courtney. I had never heard of rapamycin or the Pearl study, so obviously I was psyched to get my grubby little research paws on this topic. Just so you know, everything that I'm about to convey here is from studies published on the NIH website or from publications in journals like Nature. I'll link the most relevant ones in the show notes. Okay, rapamycin, or its clinical name sirolimus, is a compound that was originally discovered in the 1970s in the soil on Easter Island. Easter Island's actual name, the name its inhabitants call it, is Rapa Nui. Rapa Nui? Rapamycin. I think that's where that comes from. It was originally researched as an antifungal and anti-tumor agent. Apparently, it was pretty good at keeping tumors from growing. Rapamycin has been FDA approved since 1999 as an immunosuppressant to prevent kidney transplant rejection. And then in the aughts, it was more broadly used to prevent chronic rejection. In the last 10 years, it's also been used to coat coronary stents to prevent arteries from re-narrowing after the stent is placed. Around 2009, studies were being published on rapamycin mice studies, where the mice's lifespan was extended by 14% for female mice and 9% for male mice. I'm just happy they were actually using female mice in a study for once. Further mice studies showed that rapamycin was partially reversing age-related decline in organ function, including cardiac function and delaying ovarian decline. It appears to do this by triggering autophagy in cells. Autophagy is a process that your cells already do, where they break down and recycle any damaged parts of the cells. Autophagy is also called cellular housekeeping, and it's a process that tends to slow down as you age, leaving your cells with a lot of built-up junk getting in the way and keeping things from working as well as they used to. That is my own very non-technical summary of a very technical process. So this animal data is really well established, and it has been replicated many times in many studies. The human application for longevity is very, very new. In 2024, there was a year-long study called the Pearl Study, which stands for Participatory Evaluation of Aging with Rapamycin, where the participants took either 5 or 10 milligrams of rapamycin once a week, which is way, way lower than the dose that transplant patients get. They were actually studying whether or not it would reduce body fat, and it did not. But they found that women taking 10 milligrams per week had statistically significant gains in lean muscle mass and reductions in self-reported pain. And there is a current study running out of Columbia University Fertility Center called the Vibrant Study, that is testing, quote, whether low-dose rapamycin can safely slow down the degradation of the ovarian reserve, attempting to delay menopause and its downstream age-related cardiovascular risks. Whew, okay, seems cool, seems promising. And it's also still at the beginning of being studied for this particular use. Now, when we're talking risks of rapamycin, there seem to be 2 major areas. The big one is metabolic risks. People who are taking it at high daily doses, like for organ transplants, or people who are taking it at lower doses but for a prolonged period of time, can get insulin resistance, impaired glucose tolerance, and higher blood lipids. I'm not going to do a huge deep dive on that. Let's just leave it at significant metabolic effects. And the second area of side effects is canker sores. This apparently was seen pretty frequently in people taking rapamycin at lower doses for longevity. As someone who has gotten canker sores most of my life, I can say they suck real bad for quality of life, but they are not medically significant. So that's the research deep dive on rapamycin. Back to Courtney for the anecdotal lived experience.
I did it according to the study. They had these people on the drug for 6 months, and they were like my age.
Yeah.
Because there's so much other health stuff, too, that comes along with delaying menopause.
Right.
if you can push that out however many years, a few years, even 5 years, there's so many health benefits that come along with it. So am I being a guinea pig? Yes.
Right.
But also it's crazy that, you know, when I'm on the like regular regimen with it, it has put my period back to like its 30s version.
Wow. That is wild. If you have to be a guinea pig for hormonal birth control, why not be a guinea pig for things that actually like improve your quality of life too? Like, I don't know. I have no problem being a guinea pig. I don't think that there's a problem with that. And especially when you do your due diligence.
Yeah, it was like side effect, I live longer. Oh,
right.
So sad.
I always get a little cautious around drugs like this. Like GLP-1s, I think, too, are
I totally get that.
in this category, especially because there are people who enter perimenopause or menopause like really early. Estrogen is so protective for like heart attacks, stroke, things like that, bone density, that like once you are in perimenopause, like you do really need to watch out for that. And also because we live longer than our bodies were really designed to. So we weren't ever really supposed to be like in menopause for 25 years. So like we got to correct for that. But I do worry, like our culture is so obsessed with being youthful and not aging that like, do we just like this because of that? And are we ignoring risks because of that? And same with GLP-1s of like, hey, it's great that we have the ability to do this for the people who really need it. Is it great that a culture obsessed with thinness and a culture that already associates being fat with being unhealthy, which is not true in all cases? Like you can be healthy and fat. Is it great that we have this ability to just like prescribe someone a thinness drug? Like, I don't think that's great.
I know. I'm right there with you. And also it's like, we don't have all the data on all this stuff.
Right.
And yeah, no, I have a friend, a thin friend who is taking GLP-1s. And I was like, I don't have a problem with them. I do have a problem with people who don't need them.
Yeah.
Taking them because you don't know the health risks.
Yeah.
And am I taking a risk on this rapamycin? A little bit. I did pay attention to the doctors who are actually taking it themselves. Yeah. I follow this. She goes by the Egg Whisperer. She has a podcast about, she's like an IVF guru, and she takes it herself, and she's 48 now. Wow. And she prescribes it to all of her patients. So I feel like I'm not trying everything, the whole cocktail that some of these longevity guys recommend. But I was like, the menopause thing, given that I might want to have a baby in the next couple of years, I'll take this hedge.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to be like taking a drug because you're like, I don't want to age and I want to put off menopause forever. And it's another thing to be like, I want to buy myself 2 more years to be able to maybe have a baby.
Yeah.
Very different applications.
Calculus. Yeah.
I don't want to get too far in before we talk about basically, you have produced shows for everybody. You have a podcast, Private Parts Unknown. You produced the Bellas podcast. You produced Girl Boss Radio, Netflix podcast Know It All, which personally I loved as a nerd. You were a screenwriter on the Amazon animated show Danger and Eggs. You've been published in places like the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Bustle. This is all just like scratching the surface of your work. Have you ever written or produced anything about period pain?
No, that's so interesting that you say that. It's so funny when you realize like the oversights in your own work.
And I don't mean this as any sort of criticism. I'm just really curious.
I had this about abortion for a really long time. And I feel like it was like my own personal block. I have a sex podcast. Why am I not talking about my own abortion? What? But I had to consciously make an effort once I realized, oh, I'm never talking about this publicly and we're losing our rights. And like, maybe I should make a contribution to that.
Right.
Then I started doing a bunch of interviewing about it. Then I wrote an essay for Hello Giggles about it. Now I have a bunch of stuff in my book about abortion. And yeah, I feel like there's similar oversights in other like period pain, in perimenopause, in all those kind of areas that I haven't really dealt with in my work, and I need to make a conscious effort.
Yeah, like starting to research this podcast a couple years ago, it was so nuts to find the research that was like 90% of people with uteruses, of menstruating people, experience some kind of period pain, and 30% of people experience debilitating period pain. And it's like, oh, why aren't we always talking about it? That's crazy.
Seriously.
That's like more people than have seen The Office, you know? It's
Totally
crazy that it's just not a topic of conversation all the time. And it's crazy to realize, oh, I haven't been taught. I watch TV constantly, and the fact that it never comes up, like, never really struck me as weird.
Totally. And then, as a creator, you realize, oh, actually, this is within my control.
Yeah.
I know some women who are exploring similar topics through short films lately, and I kind of love that.
They've been getting some love. This is Endometriosis got a BAFTA. Jane Austen's period drama got an Oscar nomination. Like, those are both short films that got on the roster this year. So yeah, it is starting to bubble up. You have a new book out, Girl Gone Wild, and this is like a memoir through essays. And why is it titled Girl Gone Wild?
Well, I sold t-shirts on the Girls Gone Wild tour when I was 21, and I was going off of the infomercials that were like impossible to escape. Growing up, I'm sure you saw them on late night TV.
Oh, yeah.
And there was something innocent about, you know, it's like the boobs were censored and it was a big party and there was lighthearted steel drum music going on. And also it was like a cultural joke. Like politicians like John Kerry were making jokes about Girls Gone Wild. And so there was something like innocuous about the whole thing.
It was also kind of sold to us as like early
Liberation.
2000s empowerment. Same as I was just listening to something that was talking about the Girls Next Door show at the time, where it was like, you can't not respect these women for they're using their bodies however they want to use them. And it was like, are they though?
They live in a bedroom with teddy bears with this old man, but sure. No, I know.
And I feel like that was of a time of Girls Gone Wild. It's fine. It's cute. It's liberation. Like, we get to show our boobs if we want to. And like, it's definitely not exploitation.
So seeing it up close though, and I had been on like a string of experiences. It was like, I got raped. I was expected to do nudity in all these independent films that I was doing. Yikes. I did a Model Mayhem photo shoot and the guy almost killed me. Like,
Jesus, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
But I just feel like it's par for the course if you were a certain kind of, like, I was trying to be an actress.
But it shouldn't
so I got
be.
This. Oh, no, it shouldn't be at all. I do talk about that in the book, but sadly, I don't think it's uncommon.
Right.
Yeah, the Girls Gone Wild thing was the breaking point because I saw it up close and I saw that they were asking these drunk girls to sign contracts and coercing them into eating out their best friend in the back of the bus. And it was just so depressing. So after that, I really had to dig myself out of my depression, and it just reoriented my whole thinking. And it took me 5+ more years to get there. But I think ultimately those experiences are what made me a writer. You know, I was like, okay, it's so fun when you're growing up and you like want to pretend to be other people who are going through this dramatic shit, and then you live your own dramatic shit and you're like, actually, I would like to unpack that. Let me just
like a veil was lifted. Like you saw behind the curtain. And I think for someone who is at heart a writer, that experience really goes, ooh.
Yeah, and I hate to hand it to any of those experiences, but I am grateful because I do feel like this is my destiny or whatever, to be a writer, be closer to the origin of the creative process than I was as an actor. And I still get my kicks. I do stand up and stuff like that. But yeah, it has given me this outlet. And I feel like Girl Gone Wild it's a coming of age story. It's about trying to make it in Hollywood. It's also this unwitting feminist coming of age is what I call it. And yeah, I hope that I can kind of pass on my lessons of liberation to like younger women.
Oh, I love that. The premise of the memoir, just like from the blurb, I love it. And it's chasing your dreams with reckless abandon and what happens when their pursuit becomes a kind of trap. It just brought back a lot of the feelings of being like in my 20s and just like chasing experiences and chasing like an adventure or like a different way of like doing life and having a job. I was just like very obsessed with, I don't have a normal job. Like I have a job where I go to museums and I teach the staff how to tell dirty jokes. And it was really fun. But it also brought me back to like how much of that energy I had in my 20s had a darker side of avoiding truths I wasn't ready to face. One of which was there's something really wrong with my body that no one is helping me with, that no one has answers for me about, and that I'm totally alone in. Looking back, especially like in my later 20s and like early 30s, some of the adventures I was seeking felt like they took on a little bit, had an edge to them. It got a little desperate. And it was like, looking back, I'm like, oh, I was really escaping something there. And I was really not ready to face what I needed to face, my physical health and my body and my like endometriosis and, you know, what my chronic illness. I mean, I didn't know how to face it. Like I wasn't getting any help with it. And you didn't have the same kind of experience of it like getting worse and like yours normalized. But I do wonder if there is something in that like desire for adventure and like unusual experiences where there is a part of it that's like, because I don't want to look at this stuff.
Yeah, I definitely had that in parallel ways, whether it was about relationship dynamics or things like that. I think it's apropos for your audience, so I would love to discuss, but I have Hashimoto's now, and I have hypothyroid, which I do think there's something trauma related about that.
Interesting. Because thyroid, I know anytime I went to a new doctor, they would test my thyroid because that has something to do with period pain and hormones. I don't totally understand what yet, but like it is very common to have lower hormone levels if you have a thyroid condition. That's always been on my radar as something. But for you feel like it's like a trauma?
I think there's like a trauma piece of it. And also I've been incredibly ambitious for so much of my life, and your body is not necessarily meant to just be like go 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 go.
Totally.
You know, I think I had a lot of inflammation that probably contributed to this, but then it also has its own period effects and other ties into the whole perimenopause. I know a lot of people, especially women, have this and other autoimmune stuff, but I can sleep over 10 hours a day.
Wow.
I mean, let's just say I get 8 hours at night, and I'm not a napper. I've never been a napper, but now I can sleep for like 2 more hours just randomly and need to before I do stuff, which sucks. All that to say, just it does catch up with your body.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. If anyone listening right now is in a situation like we were in our 20s, striving, super ambitious, go, go, go all the time, maybe avoiding some unpleasant truths about their physical health or their mental health, and maybe experiencing some period pain, what would be your advice to them? Like from where you are now, with what you know now and the life experience that you have now, how would you tell them to do it different than you did it?
I would say one of my biggest lessons just when it comes to my body, when it comes to my career, when it comes to my relationships is just slow down. Like slow is actually fast. I think I was in such a rush to get out into the real world and be an actress and finish school as fast as possible. And then once I made the pivot to writing, it's like, okay, I need to achieve success as fast as possible. And first of all, you probably are going to wind up with Hashimoto's or something if you keep doing that. Second of all, I don't think there are any shortcuts. And if there are, you're losing out on the journey that is really the valuable piece of it. And so my one thing, I wouldn't get in the way of my younger self too much because I'm happy with where I'm at today. But I do think like the big lesson of my 20s and 30s is just slow down. Like everything that is meant for you will be waiting when you finally arrive, and take your time.
I love that.
Oh, one more thing. Speaking of guinea pig, I was a guinea pig for some research studies. This was probably in my early 30s. And one of them, they tracked my reproductive everything for like 6 months. It was crazy. Wow. They gave me like a uterine biopsy. I would get ultrasounds like every week. I think it was for birth control. I should have asked more questions. But anyway, I needed the money, so I did not ask a lot of questions. But the coolest thing about it, which is so interesting, is they would give me these ultrasounds and they would find a cyst. And this was not something I was doctoring for because I was poor and I'm not going to go in for every like pain in my abdomen. Right. I'm just going to assume it's something related to my period or like I'm constipated or whatever. Right. But it made me realize I have cysts every other month regularly. And I guess I just want to say there's all kinds of stuff. Even if you're not at the level where it's like your experience where you were like, I need surgery and blah, blah, blah. Right. Women are dealing with so much reproductive stuff under the hood that we are not even normally aware of unless we're in a, doctoring situation like that.
Right. That is so true. And I have such a like bee in my bonnet about cysts. Doctors tell you having a cyst is normal. Totally normal. If you have it, sometimes you might have like unusual pain with ovulation when you don't usually have pain. Like I was running one time and all of a sudden I got death cramps. Like I had to throw up. And I was like, what is happening? I'm like in the middle of my cycle. I'm not like, I'm not about to get my period. I had to call my mom to come pick me. I was home from college for the summer after freshman year. I had to call my mom to come pick me up like in rural Maine on the side of the road because I was like throwing up and I was just like, I don't know what's going on. And I ended up like going to the doctor right after that. And they gave me an ultrasound and they were like, oh, yeah, you have a big follicle. Like you have an empty follicle here. So it looks like you had a cyst that ruptured with ovulation. And I was like, and that's fine? Are we worried? What is that? And they were like, oh, yeah, that's normal. That happens. But then I've talked to other people who have had cysts rupture and had surgery that was already scheduled. And they go in and they see a bunch of scarring. And it's like, do we know what caused that? Did the cyst have anything to do with that? Like sometimes when a cyst ruptures, it seems like it's actually a really big deal and it creates a ton of scarring. And sometimes when a cyst ruptures, it seems like it's fine and it's normal. And I don't think we know why. And if anyone listening knows why or knows the difference or how to tell the difference.
But I remember around the same time that I was doing that research study, I was in a Taco Bell. This is such a like distinct memory. I was in a Taco Bell and I like had to, which we all know how gross the floor at Taco Bell is. I had to lay on the floor at Taco Bell because I would bet like my entire life that a cyst ruptured because it was like untenable pain. I could barely drive home after that. But that's what it feels like when a cyst ruptures. Even if you got like an under 10 centimeter one, it's not chill. It hurts like a motherfucker.
No, it is like, it's bad. It's not
really
just
bad.
It's not just something popped and that hurt momentarily, because when it pops you get inflammatory cytokines. Your immune system is like, something fucked up just happened, let me go attack it and figure it out. And so like all kinds of crazy shit happens inside of your body when that cyst ruptures. It's not just a balloon popping, it's like a balloon popping and then 20 rabid dogs like,
oh my God,
attacking the spot where it popped. We had a long way to go before we treat cysts with the seriousness that they need to be treated with.
Just a little cyst cherry on top of a great episode.
Yeah. Courtney, please tell people where they can find you, where they can find your book, and anything else you want them to know.
Girl Gone Wild is out now. You can get it anywhere. You can get it at The Bad Place. You can get it on Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble. I learned that you can request books from your local library, which is amazing.
Yeah.
You can also ask your local bookstore to get it for you, and they should be able to. You can find me on the internet. I am at Courtney Kocak. My last name is Kocak. Pretty much everywhere, but I mostly hang out on Instagram. My website is myfirstandlastname.com. I'm addicted to making podcasts. So Private Parts Unknown, The Bleeders, and I also am addicted to Substack. So you can find me on Substack too.
And I did get excited when I saw your podcast, The Bleeders, and then I was like, oh, it's a writing podcast. Interesting.
Yeah, no, totally. It's that misattributed Hemingway quote. There's nothing to writing. All you do is sit at a typewriter and bleed. But I do understand why people do sometimes think it's a period podcast.
It's just the lane I'm in.
And y'all, Kate is going to be coming on Private Parts Unknown
I'm
soon,
so excited.
So you'll be able to listen to her over there.
Thank you so much for talking with us, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for this week's Cramped. Do you have melasma? What do you think of rapamycin and the general idea of delaying menopause? Is it good? Comment on this episode in the Patreon to let me know, or come hang out with us on Discord, which you can join by, say it with me, joining the Patreon at patreon.com/cramped. You can also email me at crampedpodcast@gmail.com. See you next time.
What's happening to your body? We don't know, because we've never really studied the female body.